Hey guys, it's Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm just going to be talking about my favorite books of 2019. They weren't all published in 2019, it's just when I read them. And the ones that I have I'm going to hold up, and if I don't have them it's because I either have lent them out to a friend or I listened to the audiobook. And a couple of these, the audiobook probably is what put it onto my top list. But yeah, without much more gibbering and jabbering, I'm going to get on into the list. Okay, and I need to say that I think besides my actual top favorite, these are not in any particular order. That's just too hard. I didn't read a lot of books this year. I read 35. For me, that's usually about 45 or 50. So I was lucky that so many of them were so good. I had kind of a hard time narrowing it down, but I ended up with 10. So here we go. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills. And this is actually my first book to read of Emma Mills. I've seen her books around, but I'm just not really drawn to contemporary, YA contemporary. It's just not my favorite genre. But after watching Melanie from Mill to the Annie talk about this book, I was like, it kind of sounds like it was written for me. And it's just lovely. It's really lovely. It's so wonderful. I was a theater kid in high school and college, so I really, loved that was a big part of this book. I loved all the characters. I loved the main character. I thought that she was just realistic. Like she acted like a teenager, but she was still likable. I really liked the friendship. I also really love the character of Iris. She actually reminds me of one of my best friends who is half Korean. She was just like kind of prickly, but then the people who love her, she's just soft and takes care of them and is just lovely. I really enjoyed the boy band thing. It fits so well with me and my best friend Jackie. That's kind of what happened as we bonded over BTS. The way that they explain how they feel about the members is just so accurate. Like, they're just our small sons and we just want the best for them. But for a contemporary, I was really surprised to have given this 5 stars, but I just really loved it. I loved it. I loved everything. I love like the main plot as well as all the background stuff going on and all of the secondary relationships and the side characters. And I really liked the main relationship, which I'm not huge on relationships, but I was like rooting for them. So I highly recommend that book, obviously, because it's on my top list. And the next book I want to talk about is pretty different. It is an adult literary fiction. It's actually a modern classic, and that is Rules of Civility by Amor Towles. And I actually chose this for my pick for my book club that I have in real life with my friends, and I loved this book. It was just, I love that it didn't idealize the time period that it's set in. I love that none of the characters are really good. Like, they're all so layered and realistic, and they felt really authentic. The writing is beautiful. The story is perfect, and I just love that it's like a character study. Like, there is a plot, but mostly it's about these people's lives and just how they're dealing with everything. And it made me cry, it made me laugh. I found myself disliking a character that I thought I was going to like at the beginning. It's just, I don't know. I really recommend it. If you liked, I want to say you liked The Great Gatsby. It kind of has a similar feel. It's not similar, but it was reminiscent of that to me. But I think more people will be able to click and identify with this one aside from studying it in class, just because the writing is so approachable and the struggles are something that we all deal with, like identity, feeling like we're not just pretending like we belong, like we actually want to belong somewhere and we want to be able to show who we really are. It just kind of shows that has spanned across the ages. So yeah, Rules of Civility. Okay, my next book is one of the first ones I read in the year, and it was also my pick for my book club, and that is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And honestly, I don't have anything negative to say about this book. I thought it was perfect. I just really loved it. Oh my goodness, I loved it. I love that we go from being like, what is going on with Eleanor? She's pretty obnoxious and abrasive. She's delusional, like not someone that I could ever see myself relating to. And then the more we go into it and we see her attempt to build these relationships with people, and then we see her background, and then the end was just like I don't know. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. It's such a great look at people and humanity and how people are not always how they come off. We never know what people are dealing with. We never know what is happened to that person to have made them react or respond the way that they do. And I just really loved how simple and beautiful the story is, and the characters are definitely the shining stars here. Next book I'm going to talk about I don't have with me. I checked it out from the library, so I'll put a picture wherever it'll fit on the screen, and that is The Wicked King by Holly Black. I don't know, I just decided I wasn't going to read The Folk of the Air. I just wasn't interested. I was like, I don't really like YA fantasy anymore, but people just kept talking about it, and I was like, alright, the library has a Cruel Prince like already available, so I'll just get that. So I checked it out from the library, and I read it in one day, and then I immediately was like, I have to reserve the next one, like I have to know what happens. And then I read that in one day, and I just have to say, it is so refreshing to have a female protagonist of a YA fantasy that I really like. I really liked her. I really thought Jude, for the most part, had a really good head on her shoulders. I think that she made really smart decisions. I totally get, her weird feelings for Cardan, because I was like, do I have these feelings for Cardan? Like at first, the first book, I really was like, I don't understand when I'm seeing all this hype for Jude and Cardan. Why would anyone want to put her with this horrible person? And then at the end of The Wicked King, I was like, well, I guess I'll die for Cardan now, so that's me, count me in. Like, I get the hype. This book was beautiful. I love her fairy world. I love how dark it is. I love the really complex relationships between her and her sisters, and her and Madoc, especially her and Madoc. What a relationship. That was amazing. I actually ended up finishing the series the 1st of January, but I think The Wicked King was my favorite period in the series. It's beautiful. I mean, you've probably already read it, because who hasn't? But if you're like me and you were like sitting on the fence and you were like, it's just too hyped up and I know I won't like it, read it. Highly recommend. You'll probably love it. Alright, next book that I want to mention is one of my favorites of the year. I also don't have, because I've loaned it to my best friend, because as soon as I finished it, I wanted someone else to read it, so I had someone to talk about with it, and that is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. Now, if you know me, you know that I am fascinated with Korean culture. I grew up, thankfully, being able to eat Korean food and hear it and use the skincare and everything, because my best friend's mom is from Korea. So I just love it. I love the language. I'm trying to learn the language. Actually, I started last year. I'm hoping this year I can make some progress. So when I saw that this was a modern day fantasy set in Seoul with Korean folklore and mythology, I was like, I'm probably going to love it. And then it happened to be Kat Cho, who's an author that makes videos on YouTube, so I had already started watching a few of her videos and was really just cheering for her. I wanted her book to be great. I wanted her to do well. And it was. I really loved it. I really loved it. Mi-young and Ji-hoon, great characters. Ji-hoon is a precious angel, and we need more male characters like Ji-hoon. Just nice, good guys with no like ulterior motives. I really enjoyed it. Mi-young, she's tough. She had a really sad like story with her parents, and I really enjoyed reading about how she dealt with that, and then of course the reality that she is a gumiho, or a nine-tailed fox, which is like a spirit that eats souls. And then there's also dokebi, which are like they're goblins, which are not what we think of when we think of goblins. And there's a goblin character in the book who I love, and I think he plays a bigger role in the next book, so I'm really excited about that. But I don't want to give away the plot or what happens, because honestly, just going in knowing very little, you will enjoy it. Okay, my next choice is kind of polarizing, because some people really did not like this book, but that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. That's going to be the first in a new series that she's writing, an adult series. It's like a fantasy, but it's set in modern day, and it's amazing. It's set on Yale's campus, and it deals with their secret societies, their houses, and our main character Alex is a member of the Ninth House, which is called Lethe House, and their job is to basically keep the other houses from screwing things up and hurting people, because these other houses practice magic that involve some really weird and gross stuff. So we go from there, and then we also flash back to Alex's past a lot. She's not what you would normally think of when you think of a Yale scholarship student. So we learn about her past and why and what being able to see ghosts has meant for her life. It's really great. She's a great character too. It's really a good story about an angry woman who's okay. It's okay for her to be angry, and you know, she's a trauma survivor, and she does survive. She shows that these things do not define her, and that they did control part of her life, and she's done being controlled by it. And it's really refreshing to read that, and I really appreciated Leigh Bardugo's take and the way she handled those sensitive subjects in a fantasy setting. But I think my favorite character is one that was introduced once she gets to Yale, but we do get his perspective like every other chapter for a while, and that was Daniel Arlington, or Darlington. He was wonderful. I cannot wait to see where he is in the next story, what happens with them. I'm like, I read this too fast, I should have waited. Okay, next book is Not With Me, because I listened to it in an audiobook, and I would absolutely recommend that you consume it that way, or at least like side by side with reading it so you can see the pictures and stuff. And that was Becoming by Michelle Obama. This book is just a memoir, but it's just so beautiful. It was so rough to listen to her talk about her struggle with her dad's health problems, and watching him deal with it and try really hard to continue on like everything was fine. I think it just really touched me at the time that I read it, specifically because I was watching my mom kind of do the same with cancer. She was battling ovarian cancer, and it was just really hard to watch her not be this strong person that she'd always been for me, and Michelle really captured that perfectly. I also really loved getting to look at Barack Obama from her perspective. Gosh, their relationship is just the most precious, and I really appreciate them. And I just love Michelle Obama as a person. She is a wonderful person, but she's a really strong, intelligent woman. And when something wasn't working for her career-wise, she was like, you know what, it doesn't matter that I've spent all this money in school to do this one thing. I don't want to do it. I don't feel like this is my calling. I feel like I'm really drawn to doing this other thing where I'm not going to make as much money, but I'm still going to negotiate the best possible salary for myself and my family. And she did it. She wasn't afraid, and I think you can learn a lot, especially if you are not necessarily, you know, the same party as her. It's a good way to remember that they're humans. They're not just their political affiliations. The next book that I want to talk about is one I listened to an audiobook. I really like to do that with memoirs. I'm noticing that's like a thing. Was Educated by Tara Westover, and most people have heard about this book. It was pretty much the most popular book on Goodreads this year, at least out of all the ones I read on my Goodreads, like stats, that's what it said. It's about a girl who is a member of a really interesting family. They're Mormon, but more so than they're Mormon, they're not. I mean, her father had some things and a huge mistrust of the government, so that meant schools, hospitals, birth certificates, definitely immunizations, just medicine in general. And so it's about her going from this kind of crazy, abusive father and a mother who really wasn't there to protect her children from the crazy, abusive father, and just her childhood. It was such an interesting, strange childhood. She had to work. She had to work in a junkyard. She had to help her mother midwife. And she just did a lot, and they didn't have electricity, they didn't have phones, they didn't have a lot of things. But it ends with her as a scholar. It's incredible. It's also very obvious that she's not very far removed from the situation discussed in the book, so you can definitely feel everything that she is feeling through it, especially listening to it. You can tell she's still really hurt by these people that were her family that have chosen not to be her family. It's just a really beautiful look at how, you know, sometimes our family is who we find and sometimes it's not who we share blood with. But where we come from does not define who we are or what we're going to be, and that just because you're from a certain place with things that are known about you, that's not you, and you have your own chance to define who you are, and you can always grow and you can always learn. Alright, next book I want to discuss is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I know everyone's already read this book. I really feel like I was just catching up this year. But you probably already know it's about a stodgy old man named Ove who reminds me so much of my dad. And a little bit of me, like if I was like the most unhealthy type 1 that ever lived. Like when I was reading it, he would do things like put signs in his yard and like move people's bikes that weren't parked in the right place because that was the rule, and the rules are there for a reason to protect people. And I was like, ooh, I 100% understand where he's coming from. But this book was so beautiful. But yeah, this book is just gorgeous, and I just really recommend reading it. It really got me. It made me cry and laugh, and I really love the characters and the found family that Ove ended up with. And the last book that I want to talk about, I think, is the one that was my favorite of the year. It was one of the last reads of the year for me, and it's nonfiction, and that is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. And this is amazing. Lori Gottlieb is a therapist, so it's about her patients, but she also sees a therapist, so it's about her problems. And it's just amazing. It's extremely relatable, and it just helps confirm that everyone needs to be in therapy. It is very important for everyone. No one is above it, and everyone can benefit from it. But it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful look into one person's life who showed us glimpses into other people's lives, and I did not expect to love it as much as I did, and I definitely didn't expect to cry. So, alright, well those are my top 10 books of 2019. Let me know down below what were some of your favorite books. Were any of them on this list? Are there any that I should read that were your absolute favorite? And if you enjoyed, please like, and if you want to see more of my face, please subscribe. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks!